Hello, I've been reading another health topic article I think people will find interesting. There is a recent case of an American toddler diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and it may have a link with the severity of the rising medical problems with the standard American modern diet of processed food. A 3-year-old girl who weighed in at 77 pounds is now one of the youngest persons ever to be diagnosed with an obesity-related disease, type 2 diabetes. In the past, type 2 diabetes was referred as adult-onset diabetes, and most patients were in their senior category or age, but now doctors are thinking about changing this due to the recent rise of type 2 diabetes in all age groups. They are now reclassifying the name from adult onset diabetes to just type 2 diabetes. Over our years, our diets and lifestyles have changed, so now has the disease classification. While lack of exercise is certainly a factor, one would hard to be pressed to accuse a 2-year-old of being too sedentary. Or is there another factor at play, or did all these factors of diet, lifestyle, medication have a part in this 3-year-old showing symptoms of type 2 diabetes? Most people in the medical field would say many babies and children are raised and fed too much sugar right from the start. Many parents fail to realize that infant formulas can contain significant amounts of added sugars and fillers, and this paves the way for the increased risk of chronic disease from day one. There are other toxic and other horrible factors that can occur in the birthing process in the standard Western American hospital birth, but I will talk about the other factors and problems in the future videos. Now, according to the current research, past investigations have revealed trans fats now to promote heart disease in some formulas, as well as genetically engineered ingredients are also suspected of causing obesity and health problems in long term, primarily promoting inflammation and disrupting gut flora. Last year's data from the U.S. Center of Disease Control and Prevention showed that more than 29 million Americans were diagnosed with full-blown type 2 diabetes, and this statistic researchers predicted in 2001 wouldn't be reached in 2050. So a prediction that they thought in 2001 is already here, and that wouldn't occur in 2050 has already occurred. A more recent study, for the first time including estimated disease rates for certain minority groups, suggested as much as half of the American public may have either prediabetes or full-blown type 2 diabetes. Diabetes rates have also soared in other countries. In the UK, rates have risen by 60% in the last decade. Some doctors say when you start investigating the diets of babies and young children, these statistics become less surprising, in fact, to be expected. 1 in 4 Americans eat some type of fast food on a daily basis, and nearly half the money Americans spend on food is spent on fast food. More than 1/3 of school-aged children and adolescents eat fast food on a daily basis. An estimated 56% of 8-year-olds also drink soda on a daily basis, and once the teenage years come, some kids drink at least 3 cans of soda a day. Babies and toddlers rarely should have no added sugars at all. It's completely non-essential for their growth and development. Most doctors would say breast milk is ideal, and even if you cannot breastfeed, there are far better alternatives than commercial infant formulas with toxic additives. This information alone is disgusting. The self-centered irresponsibility of parents and mothers. This is a life form you created, and it is your duty as a mother to ensure a healthy start. However, there are even more dietary factors at play that the parents could have control over. According to a recent study, type 2 diabetics tend to have more exposure to antibiotics in years prior to their diagnosis compared to non-diabetics. This may be another fast food factor that places young children at an increased risk of diabetes and related health problems. Antibiotics overused in food production has also led to the current scourge of antibiotic resistance disease. Now, I agree with this doctor. He recommends that antibiotic exposure is one of the reasons why he doesn't recommend eating foods from factory farmed animals, as they tend to be raised on antibiotic growth promoters and chemicals. Each time you or your child eats food made from such animals, you're getting a small dose of antibiotics that over time with regular consumption can upset your gut flora and have notable impact on your weight and metabolism. The good news is that while a small number of restaurants have taken steps to limit meat raised on antibiotics, the vast majority of fast food restaurants, major restaurant chains have not. But there still are other options. A recent report produced by 6 consumer interest in public health and environmental safety organizations warned that 20 out of 25 restaurant chains surveyed have failed to take any affirmative action on this issue and still serving meat and poultry raised on antibiotics. But the good news is Chipotle and Panera Bread were the only 2 restaurants, according to this report, that publicly affirmed the majority of meat served comes from antibiotic-free production. Yet another factor is pesticides and herbicides. Pesticides and herbicides are another factor that has now started to come to the forefront as a major driver of chronic disease, including diabetes. According to a recent analysis of 21 studies, exposure to pesticides, regardless of type, was associated with 61% increased risk of any type of diabetes. 12 of the studies focused on type 2 diabetes, specify linking pesticides and exposure to 64% increased risk of type 2 diabetes. This is a systematic review that supports the hypothesis that exposure to various types of pesticides and herbicides increase risk of diabetes. The author of the study wrote, adding that analyzing each pesticide separately and suggesting that some pesticides are more likely to contribute to the development of diabetes than others. Some that they found that you may know of is DDE, DDT, HCB, and glyphosate. One of the most widely used herbicides in the U.S. is glyphosate, the active ingredient in Monsanto's herbicide Roundup. In late March of this year, the International Agency of Research on Cancer, which is the research arm of the World Health Organization, reclassified glyphosate as a Class 2A probable human carcinogen based on evidence showing it can cause non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and lung cancer in humans. Other research has also linked glyphosate to an increased risk of diabetes, along with a slew of other chronic health problems, including Alzheimer's disease, which some believe may yet to be another form of diabetes. Basically, they call it brain diabetes or type 3 diabetes. A Swedish researcher recently confirmed that controlling your blood sugar level appears to be an important aspect of dementia prevention of type 2 diabetes who are at an increased risk of neurological degeneration or Alzheimer's or other chronic health problems. This study included nearly 35,000 people, and blood sugar levels were tracked using hemoglobin A1C tests. The newer type of test provides you with an average blood sugar level over the past several months. And according to this research, found that those with an HA1C level of 10.5% or higher were 50% more likely to be diagnosed with dementia compared to people with an A1C level of 6.5% or less. Now for some positive solutions. One of the basic keys to good health and disease prevention is to eat real food. This may be particularly true for diabetes prevention, type 2 diabetes prevention, and eliminate processed foods. Fast foods contain not just one but several components shown to promote metabolic dysfunction and obesity. This includes processed fructose and other added sugars, trans fats, antibiotics, and pesticides, along with other artificial ingredients such as artificial sweeteners and MSG. A 2012 study found that both of these additives cause an increase in fasting blood glucose levels that contribute to the onset of prediabetes, type 2 diabetes. When it comes to meat, it's important to make sure that it's antibiotic free and organically raised. So this doctor is recommending that you eat unprocessed foods and have good home cooked meals as a prevention, which I agree that would help other people. Now when I read articles like this, it's just depressing and upsetting. It's unacceptable behavior by both parents, especially the mother if they don't properly care for the child, since the mother is normally the sole caretaker for the child and produces food for the baby and toddler. I and others have to suffer for the poor decisions and the lack of personal responsibility of previous generations and parental ignorance and the rise of feminism. Now this article is talking mostly about type 2 diabetes, but I have type 1 diabetes, and it's not a lifestyle disease. It is not my lifestyle disease. It was a parent's lifestyle disease, an environmental factor, and a medical ignorance problem and parental ignorance that has ensured my medical suffering in this life. There are parents that are poisoning their children, and most of them don't even realize it, and the remainder just don't care. This will only deprive and cheat the children from a chance at a normal, healthy life that I was able to experience, and it will allow them to suffer just like I was later in life.